The world is broken.
This fucking show is broke. So I just watched The Wheel of Time, and it's pretty bad. But this isn't your everyday average bad. This is advanced bad.
Hey, if I close my eyes...
That's not so bad!
Unfortunately, even closing your eyes can't protect you from the tragedy that is Wheel of Time. It might save you from the bad CGI, but nothing's gonna protect you from that horrible opening monologue.
Many, many years ago, men who were born with great power believed they could cage darkness itself. The arrogance.
What the fuck is this? You know, usually when you're trying to introduce a complex fantasy franchise to a new audience, you know, one that has weird terms like Aes Sedai, you don't want to have the same introduction as Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Many, many years ago, men who were born with great power believed they could cage darkness itself.
Abandoned as a pup, he was found by Muriel, who lives in the middle of nowhere with her husband, Eustace Bay.
When they failed, the seas boiled, mountains were swallowed up, cities burned, and the women of the Aes Sedai were left to pick up the pieces.
Creepy stuff happens in nowhere. It's up to Courage to save his new home.
Stupid dog! You made me look bad!
I would like to know who thought it was a good idea to start this series. A series, by the way, that's supposed to be in the same category as Game of Thrones. To start this series exactly the same as Avatar: The Last Airbender, a show aimed at children.
These women remembered one thing above all else. The man who brought the breaking of the world. And him, they named Dragon.
Only the Avatar, master of all four elements, could stop them. But when the world needed him most, he vanished.
Now, this man has been born again. We don't know where or to whom, if he was reborn as a girl or a boy. The only thing we know for certain is that this child is coming of age now.
100 years passed and my brother and I discovered the new Avatar, an airbender named Aang. And although his airbending skills are great, he has a lot to learn before he's ready to save anyone.
I mean, do you see what I mean about this show sounding like it was made for children? Why did they just decide they needed to explain everything at the very beginning? Why did they decide that everyone was too stupid to understand the plot on their own? It's just ridiculous. And this isn't to hate on Avatar or anything. It's a fucking awesome show, but you gotta admit, its target audience is children, so it's gotta dumb itself a little bit down. Wheel of Time, on the other hand, aged its characters up so that they would be sexy, sexy adults. Could have sexy, sexy sex scenes, just like Game of Thrones. Not to mention it has one of the most bizarre and also bloodiest scenes I've seen in a long time. Yeah, I don't think that this is for children. Maybe instead of throwing the audience into the story in, you know, the worst way possible, they could have done something a little bit different. Have a scene with some interesting characters, maybe a bit of ominous music, set the tone. You know, create a little atmosphere instead of doing nothing. There's also this small show out there. I'm not really sure if a lot of you guys have heard it. It's called Game of Thrones, but it has this really great introduction. It starts off in this cold, desolate wasteland with just these three characters. None of them say a word. You just watch as this gate slowly creaks open, and his ominous music builds as these men are going through this gate. Where are they going? Why are they going there? Who are they? These are the kind of questions you develop in your mind without even thinking about it, because you're interested. You want to know what happens next. Instead of being told everything you're supposed to know, you start to wonder, and you want to know. I mean, this is pretty much filmmaking 101. You want to show your audience things, not tell them. I mean, this opening scene with the three men walking through the gate, the wall, is longer than Moraine's entire speech. And it conveys more too without a single line of dialogue. The music, the setting, the characters' outfits, I mean, just everything about them says so much without even having to say a word. Oh, wait a minute, what am I talking about? That's not how Game of Thrones starts. Game of Thrones starts with Tyrion Lannister going,
Westeros, 1,000 years ago it was torn apart by the White Walkers, but Azor Ahai saved us, and now he's reborn into a person we don't know who. I am Lannister's son, and Cersei fucks my brother, and now darkness needs to be stopped. That was a much better intro, honestly. I mean, I didn't understand what was going on with the snow and the three people that didn't say it. I just, what? I need to know what's happening in this piece of media the second it starts, or I will lose interest. My brain can only hold on to attention for 2 seconds. And this isn't to say that all expository monologues are bad, but you have to at least do something with them to make them more interesting to your audience. You can't just show yourself getting dressed and hope that'll be enough. I mean, for example, just look at Lord of the Rings, which has a pretty similar start to Wheel of Time, but it just does so much more with its introduction, and it's able to show you so much more in a much more interesting and engaging way.
The world is changed.
Wait, hold on a second.
The world is broken.
Oh, moving on.
I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth. I smell it in the air. Much that once was is lost, for none now live who remember it.
The reason why this monologue works and the Wheel of Times doesn't is because you actually get to see what Galadriel is explaining to you. Yes, she is just explaining the plot to you, but there are important visuals going along with it. In Wheel of Time, Moiraine is just talking at you and you're watching her get dressed. It's just jarring and it doesn't seem to connect with what she's saying. Whereas in Lord of the Rings, while Galadriel is talking about the forging of the rings, you see, what? The forging of the rings. While she talks about the elves and dwarves and humans, you see what? The elves and dwarves and humans. You see Sauron, the main antagonist. You see Agent Smith leading the elves. You see Sauron defeated. You see the ring going to Gollum. You see the ring going to Bilbo. I mean, it just shows you everything. You don't even need to look at other franchises to see how bad the Wheel of Time TV show's intro really is. Just look at the Wheel of Time books. The prologue of the first book is so fucking awesome. And if you want to get a good idea for how it would actually look, there's a great series of graphic novels by Chase Conley. Just looking at these images, you can see how much cooler this introduction would have been than what the show gave us. We get to see this amazing scene with Lewis Theron and the Man in Black as he explains how Lewis is insane and he's killed everyone he loves. It's just such a crazy scene, and it really draws you into the story because you want to know what the hell is going to happen next. Not to mention, we get to see this awesome display of the dragon's powers. Lewis literally creates an entire fucking mountain. I mean, the show doesn't really give us any of this. It tries to explain the same things, and I guess it does. But do we really care about this little horse chase? Do we really care about this one guy just imagining another guy there? I mean, like, how is that more effective than Lewis killing his own wife and children? Why the show didn't choose to adapt this perfectly laid out introduction to their story baffles me beyond belief. They had it all written out for them, and instead decided to just write their own intro that is less effective and far less engaging. But the final shitty nail in the shitty coffin of this show's shitty introduction is the fact that by starting things through Moiraine's POV, it defeats this little mystery that we have at the start of the show. There's this little town where everybody knows each other, but there's weird things going on. Mysterious riders, now this woman coming to town. I mean, you don't really know who to trust. But don't just ask me. Here, you can see what Brandon Sanderson has to say about the introduction to the Wheel of Time. You know, Brandon Sanderson, the guy who finished the Wheel of Time.
I've read a ton of these fantasy novels, and there's always Gandalf, or there's Alanon, or there's Belgarath, or there's always the wise wizard. And when the wise wizard shows up and it's a woman who you don't trust, then that's a different. I'm like, I know what role this person is fulfilling, but they're doing it in a different way. I am intrigued. Why don't I trust her? Should I trust her? Is this Gandalf? Is this not actually Gandalf?
That's about all I have to say about Wheel of Time. It's just so sad that with all of the awesome source material and all the resources at Amazon's disposal, that this was the best they could do. It's just such a wasted opportunity. It makes me sad. Well, at least I can always go back and enjoy the Lord of the Rings and its perfection. It's not like anyone will ever ruin that. I mean, what else is there left to adapt? Right? Right?